I am being watched. Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Person of Interest Season 2 Episode 15. It's called Booked Solid. So spoilers for the episode. And I thought this was a really fun episode. It's pretty self-contained and not in plot but in location because it's all contained in a hotel pretty much, barring a couple of little things. It's a maid who works at the hotel who is the person of interest, and Finch and Reese both get jobs at the hotel. So Finch is at the concierge desk using all of his computer skills but doing typically what he normally does, and Reese is going around as a bellhop trying to sort of figure out why she's in trouble and so on and so on. I think what makes this one so fun, and obviously there's some other plots that kind of interfere with things. Hirsch specifically comes after Reese during this episode, and a little tease at the ending, which I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for the return of a certain character. But I think what makes this one fun, though, is because it is so contained in, a hotel, especially in the context of Person of Interest, where we're constantly dealing with, like, all the surveillance cameras and we're dealing with the infrastructure. I think a hotel's almost its own little, like, world, right? It's its own little world with its own boundaries, but inside that boundaries, you understand the geography of the whole place. You understand all the hotel rooms and the floors and the hallways, the lobby, the bar, the kitchen. It's all very easy to understand, kind of the layout of everything pretty much. And it means that once there's like multiple assassins running around and we're trying to play a game of like, where are they? Are they coming for the maid? It feels like you get to play a lot and understand the action very clearly. So you get a lot of shorthands that are very fun to play with. I think it's just as an action episode, as a sort of building the tension episode, it works really well in a fun way because it is such an easy to follow location. So I think just on that level alone, it's a fun, entertaining episode with a very good, simple case of the week. Yeah, there's the usual, like, oh, who's the culprit? What's going on here? And they kind of set up early that it could be, just a hotel guest who's getting a bit handsy. She clearly gets harassed occasionally by customers, by guests. Reese steps in and deals with that. The other sort of bigger possibility is it's maybe the hotel manager who kind of comes and threatens her about talking to the police and exposing what he does at the hotel, which it turns out he's basically, they run like a sort of private escort service throughout the hotel, and the manager doesn't want it found out for that. And the manager's a complete dick. In fact, one of my biggest laughs of the episode, he keeps chewing out Reese for being lazy and not doing his job and like, get back to work. He's always got this stern attitude. And the second time he does it in this episode, Reese just sort of grumbles to himself, I really hope he's the threat, because he really wants to hit him. Now, he doesn't actually end up being the main threat, but he still hits him anyway. And yeah, he's such a dick that, to be honest, it's hard not to enjoy it. It's hard not to get something out of it. So the main threat, though, it turns out, is that this woman, this maid, she is an immigrant, a refugee, maybe more specifically, who witnessed a war crime from a brutal sort of general, and they want to murder her because she can expose him. She can give eyewitness testimony, and there's even footage of one of these murders, which she's also been given from this journalist, or whoever this other guy was that was trying to like get her to talk. But that's why there's a hit squad coming, because it's kind of a nice big turn in the episode, maybe about a third or so in, where Reese kind of like points out to Finch that there's a guy in the lobby who's been sitting there as if he's like on surveillance. And then they notice that there's another guy in the bar, because when they make the guy in the lobby move, this guy in the bar comes and replaces him, and then another guy comes and replaces the guy in the bar, and he's like, this is a hit squad who are doing surveillance. They're filling their gaps in their surveillance. And that was part of what was making such a fun use of the surveillance system, because obviously we're always looking through cameras on this show. It's kind of like a constant thing. But getting back to what I was saying about this being like its own little closed world, is that they can kind of keep track of the entire building. It's more manageable as an amount of things to look at. So you've got the classic looking at the different monitors, looking at the different cameras, and sort of trying to track movements. Like, where's the victim? Is she safe? Is she's at one point, like, where is she? She's like, oh, she's in the kitchen having her lunch. Okay, we know she's there. We know where like 3 of the bad guys are, and it becomes a bit of a chess game, a bit of cat and mouse trying to kind of deal with that. So I thought that was really good fun stuff, and that was what really raised the question of like, wait, someone sent a hit squad? That's really like upper tier. That's, you know, that's something you do for like high class assassination targets. Why is a maid being targeted like this? They assumed it was a more grounded threat because of who she was. She doesn't have much of a social life. She works a lot. Presumably the threat was going to come from something close by, but it ends up being this much bigger thing. And given that we were working with characters who are constantly like lying about all the big important stuff they're doing, it kind of ties into that a little bit. It doesn't tie, like, you know, a lot of the plots in this show, like there's really great thematic links between the plot of the week and the overall character story for the main characters. This one's not as tied thematically, I would say. Or at least I didn't notice anything. Maybe someone else can tell me if there's a nice like link to Reese or Finch's story. It didn't really matter because it was so entertaining. So yeah. Also, I didn't even mention that. I almost said Paige because that's the actress's name, but Zoe pops up in this episode. She just happens to bump into Reese in the elevator, and they do the whole "I haven't seen you since the divorce," which obviously it was like a cover marriage, but it was funny for them to go through the wheel, you know, of this. And she helps. She's the one who kind of gets rid of the assassin or the you know, the hit squad guy in the lobby. And then there's a bit of humor at the end with her about, you know, she basically scouring the hotel looking for clients who want to cover up their deeds because people try to get away with things in hotels, and, you know, seemingly spends the night with Reese at the end of the episode. They have that kind of flirtatious, occasional, on-off again, kind of no strings attached type relationship. It's all in good fun. It's all good humor. I think what makes that really work in this episode is that the ending kind of teases that we're getting to more serious business soon. So it kind of felt like we're just going to have fun with these characters. And, you know, we've spent a number of episodes recently where we didn't do the formula. We did last week. This has been 2 in a row where we've been kind of back to classic episodes. But before that, and apologies if you heard my phone ding there, but before that, there was several episodes where we weren't doing typical person of interest stories because we were dealing with larger plot things, dealing with Donnelly, dealing with them hunting Reese, all that stuff, Reese being in prison for a bit. It felt like last episode and this episode, especially this one, it felt like let's just have a fun romp of an episode where most of it is just lighthearted, good old-fashioned. Reese gets to step out and be the hero. The victim's like, who are you? I don't trust you. Oh wait, you just saved my life. I guess I'll just have to go along with this. And some of it's quite fun, like, you know, when she runs away, obviously, once Reese starts interacting with her, and they find that the journalist seems to have disappeared mysteriously, and there's a bloodstain in the wall, and there's a mic in the vent. She runs away scared because there's, like, an assassin next door in the next room. She ends up in the elevator with another member of the hit squad, and she's on her own, and Finch can see that because the guy tapes up the camera, and he's like, hey, she's on the elevator with an assassin. She's almost. She's lucky he didn't just shoot her in the elevator, honestly. The fact that he wanted to take her somewhere else to do it is just a stroke of luck more than anything. But, you know, we get a whole sequence where Reese does a sort of, like, it's the opening act of Speed, where he's, like, jumping on top of the elevator and opening up the hatch at the top and try to get a good shot and whatnot. And it's a fun little bit. It feels, in a very contained setting, it felt like probably the biggest, most high-stakes thing you could do is, like, he's in an exposed elevator shaft and you can see the draft kind of blowing his hair a little bit. Yeah, that felt like a lot of fun to me, and I was just constantly being entertained by this episode. I will question why the assassin didn't hear Reese land on the roof of the elevator. It felt like you'd probably feel a bit of a jolt from that, but I won't get too picky with it. Fusco ends up coming in to help as well. He does a bit of watching, but then ultimately his job is to help her back to the police station where she'll be presumably safe, although one of the assassins tries to get her there anyway. So, but like I said, like, because of the ending of the episode, it feels like we're getting to a bit more serious business where the stakes are heightening, and even Hirsch coming in, of course, you know, because they hear about the bodies at the hotel, and that's what attracts Hirsch to come to the hotel and try and get Reese. And his main mission, other than killing Reese, is to find out who Reese is working for. Finch is the big secret. Finch is the thing that they want to know. And the fight between them is really good. You know, like the plot's pretty much wrapped up at the hotel. Reese is on his way out, and Hirsch comes in, and they end up fighting in the kitchen. And Reese is able to sort of basically turn it into more of a knife fight rather than like, because he's at gunpoint for the first like half of the scene. But we get this like knife fight and like try to push their heads into the open flame of the stove and all that stuff. Reese wins the fight. I actually thought for a second he'd killed Hirsch, and I was going to say, hey, it's kind of weird that we're just killing him off so quick. Instead, Reese makes it clear that, hey, you've got about 20 minutes until you bleed out. You can go to the hospital. He shows him mercy. He shows him, you know, more than, as he puts it, his own employer probably would. And I think it's interesting because even Hirsch points out that him and Reese are a lot alike. And at a certain point, Reese was this guy. He was following orders just like this dude. So I think that's interesting that maybe Reese is showing him some amount of mercy because he recognizes that this was once him, and he's trying to give this guy possibly a chance to, you know, to maybe choose to change or do something differently. It doesn't seem like he's going to. If anything, I suspect that his pride's probably hurt, and that's going to come back in a big way when next time he faces off with Reese. He's probably going to be more determined, possibly reckless, and that might still lead to his demise, but it's certainly interesting for now. But yeah, it did make this fight feel like a bigger deal than everything that had came before it, just because we have been building up to it for some time, this confrontation. But it was really the ending, and I'll go back and talk about all the Carter stuff, but I'll talk about the ending here, because Special Counsel calls Hirsch back to Washington at the end of the episode, and you don't really think of it when he speaks to his like assistant on the phone, but when he speaks to her a second time, I instantly recognize the voice. You know, he asks her to come in because he wants to, you know, dictate something. And from then on, I could tell whose voice it was. It was Root. It's Amy Acker. She comes in and she's been the good assistant. She's remembered his anniversary with his wife and got his suit for him. And he compliments how good a job she's doing. And it's just like, okay, she's infiltrated the office of the special counsel character. And because we know, well, we don't really know what they, I mean, obviously we speculate that in some way he's closer to the machine than like most other characters we've seen in some capacity. Whether or not he's actively sending people out after the relevant targets, I don't know. The fact that Root is coming to infiltrate his office though, and is coming after him, given her interest, it makes me think that he does have more of a direct connection to the information that the machine's given out, at least. But very fun ending. It was exciting to see her and hear those little notes in the music again, because, you know, she's Root, she's fun. It felt like a big thing. So yeah, loved the ending. Couldn't have been happier. It was such a fun episode, and then the ending was just this perfect little like tease of like, okay, we're getting back to the really exciting stuff. You know, we've not had Root since episode 2. It's been what, 12, 13 episodes we've went without her. Such a shame. All the Carter stuff, though, we got that to talk about, which is that she's still been offered a place in the FBI, and she's all for it. And they mention, okay, we have to do a background check, talk to anyone you've worked with for the last 10 years, blah, 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 blah. Also a polygraph test. It's just standard procedure, no big deal. And she agrees to it, obviously. And she's like, a little bit worried about it, though. Finch questions if she's worried about it. What really comes out of this, though, other than her trying to just sort of, you know, make sure the machine's not going to out her in any of these things she's been doing with Reese, the surprise is, though, for her, is that it's not like a secret association with Reese or Finch that gets her in trouble here. It's actually her association with Sterling K. Brown's character, whose name I am forgetting. Beecher, Cal Beecher, that's him. Because we see him at the start of the episode, and it seems like things are going well with Carter. She's thinking about having him meet her son, so, you know, taking that next step in the relationship. And it's actually him, it's her relationship with him that red flags her. And at the end of this thing, she's told that she can't join the FBI, that this isn't working out, to choose her friends more carefully. And I think it is kind of a little ironic that it's, in theory, a relationship with another cop who it shouldn't be causing any problems. It shouldn't be something she has to keep secret. Turned out to be the problem because he's dirty. He's got, you know, there's IED investigations to bring up. We know he was approached by the head of HR, and he's got his maybe connections to that. So we know that there's truth to this. It's not just like some old investigation that maybe we could, you know, okay, he got investigated, but does that mean that he actually did something? But we've seen enough of it as the audience to actually kind of give it some credence, where we kind of do believe that he's no good. So yeah, she gets quite cold with him at the end of the episode, and I think from an audience perspective, it's almost like the show's reaffirming that the people she does actually help and has a strong attachment to in recent Finch are the people that it turns out, yeah, like, while this is the one that's technically illegal and is technically the wrong type of relationship for her to have, it's actually the one that's not betrayed her here. It's the one that's giving her, like, you know, it's helping her achieve good. It's making her a part in saving people, which is something I think she doesn't feel, you know, the gray of like that connection with those two characters, I think, is obviously something she's dealt with in the past. It's something she's had problems with, but it's kind of interesting that now that one feels clearly defined morally, at least, to be a good relationship. But it's this guy who should have been a normal, like, boyfriend type material of an upstanding citizen who's in the system, that turned out to be the one that got her in trouble. It's the one she didn't know about. For all the secrets that Finch and Reese kind of keep, she knows that they're keeping secrets, and that there's probably a good reason why they're so secretive about it. Everything that turns out Cal's been investigated for, even though she doesn't get the details on that, the fact that he's been investigated for some dirty stuff, that is a complete surprise. That's something he could completely hidden. And I think that irony is not going to be lost on her, and I thought that added a bit of space to this reveal for me. When they introduced Cal, I was like, okay, there's a bit of a love interest for Carter, and when they showed him being with the head of HR, I was like, okay, this is interesting. I didn't really know where to go with it, or what they were going to do with it, but I actually think this swerve here, where it's the lie detector test, where she's worried about her relationship with Reese and Finch being the problem, but it's actually him that's the problem, and this is how she finds out that he's got some skeletons in his closet, I actually think was a really inspired way of revealing that information to her. Obviously we know it, but this was a great way of her finding out, because she's completely sidelined from it. And it's a good performance as well in the moment, because her reaction when they start asking about him is like complete just confusion. She's like, what, Cal? What are you talking about? Like, she was expecting difficult questions about other possible associations, but not him. So I thought that was good. So yeah, that was my thoughts on episode 15 of Person of Interest. Apologies, I missed a week last week. I missed a lot of things last week. Life stuff was going on. But yeah, we're back on track. So let me know what you thought of this episode. Please do hit the like button if you enjoyed my thoughts and like getting these reviews. It helps me know that they should keep coming. And of course, you can support financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Help keep the lights on and keep all the reviews coming. But yeah, that's me. I should probably promote other things at the end of these. Yeah, I'm been reviewing X-Files. That's been fun. New shows that are being reviewed right now: Constellation from Apple and Shogun from FX. Check those out if you're interested. But that is me. Thank you very much for joining. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?